Hello and welcome to Two Girls in a Pod. I'm Sharon.
I'm Christy.
Hope all of you are doing well. You know, it's interesting because sometimes I'll talk with different people about our podcast, people who listen, what would you like to hear? And so this last week I was talking to somebody and they said, you know, I really enjoyed hearing stuff about like the paranormal, the things like that, and said about doing another episode.
Those ones are kind of fun. And we have like 3 of them, I think, now. This will be the 4th.
Well, and I think it's really interesting because I think people are just drawn once again to that unknown and that idea of trying to figure it out. It's like this puzzle, you know, trying to put all these pieces together, don't you think? I mean, I don't know.
Well, how exciting too, because one aspect of this, like we're talking about, is UFOs or UAPs, and that has been a huge thing even in media lately. Government coming forth and saying, yeah, we don't know everything that's in our sky. And I think it really sparked more interest for people.
Well, I think there's that. And I think there's more, you know, I mean, go to Discovery Plus or whatever and History Channel, whatever they are. And, you know, there's more on Bigfoots. There's more on these unknown things that people are just fascinated with.
Like we do. We love Discovery Plus, huh?
Yes, we do. And I think the reason why is, once again, because what I love is when we watch these programs and then we have these conversations.
That's one of the things I love the most, because I feel like that those kind of programs, at least for us, really spark great conversation. And I think that it's really cool because it just gets you thinking, you know, what of all the possibilities and what ifs.
And I think that's what it is too. And I think when I was talking to the person, that's it, you know, it's that fascination with that unknown.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's some people that are just completely afraid of it and do not want to have anything to do with that. I mean,
like we've mentioned, our friend June. And then there's Kathy Weber.
Our friend Kathy Weber. That's what I was going to say is, remember in one of the previous episodes, I think that you mentioned about maybe we can get her to go down there with us sometime. And, you know, we've still not got her to go back there. She's done with that place.
She's been there once and, you know, made the whole judgment about it. The thing that is, I think, important is because the valley has such a rich history. It is an old history.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating place. I mean, you can look up the San Luis Valley and even just some of its geological features, and that it's the highest alpine valley in the world at 7,500 feet. And it's 122 miles long by like 78 miles. It is huge, and it has such an interesting feel.
Well, it's geologically different too, you know, this whole thing.
And it's got these mountain ranges all the way around it, so it's like you could close it off. I mean, it has such an interesting feel when you go there. And different people have mentioned that. And I know a lot of people have been there because of the sand dunes, which are in Alamosa, or close to Alamosa. Those sand dunes within themselves, it's sort of anomalous. It's right at the foot of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, but some of those sand dunes are 750 feet tall.
And trust me, you'll feel that if you're ever walking them.
Yeah. But there's so many fascinating things about it in that way alone, and so many stories that have been born out of that location from different cultures and just people that have visited there. I had never heard of the San Luis Valley before. And my parents and I came to Colorado. They moved to the Western Slope, Palisade. And I had never been there. But for whatever reason, I mean, I started going to Mesa State College in Grand Junction. And one of the sister colleges was Adams State. And for whatever reason, I wanted to look into it. So I did, and ended up making a trip to the valley prior to even meeting you, and that being your birthplace. And for some reason, when I went there, I just knew that I was going to be there at some point. And it's interesting because, you know, I'm from city. It's not a big city area. It has all these little towns. There are 6 counties that the valley encompasses and partials of 3 others. So it's a huge valley, but there's not a lot of business there, not a lot of industry. It's very small town feel. But for whatever reason,
a lot of farmland and a lot of cattle and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Yes. I don't know. I was so drawn to go to Adams State and ended up going there. That's where I got my undergrad.
Even when you said that, I remember my friend Jake. I can't remember where he was from, but they happened to be driving through the valley. And he tells his wife, we're going to live here. And she goes, what? So they moved to Crestone.
That's the exact same feel.
He
It
said,
was that
yes.
simplistic. It was like it dropped in my head. It was like, you're going to live here at some point.
Well, and that was him. They were driving through, and then it was like, no, we're going to live here. And they moved to Crestone, and that's how I met him. We worked together at mental health, and we were talking about that one day. He goes, it was just there. It was just like I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like they were planning to move.
Exactly.
It was like, oh, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And I think there's a feel, and I know for me, as soon as, if we're going in from 160, as soon as you hit the top of La Vida Pass, right as soon as you hit that, you start entering the valley. For me, there is a feel.
Mm-hmm.
The valley has a feel. It's almost a life of its own. I don't know how to explain it.
It almost feels very mystical.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good word for it. I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know that I've heard other people from the San Luis Valley describe it in that way. When they get there, it does. It has this mystical feel to it. There's a mystery surrounding it.
Well, and I think the other thing is, like I said, it has such a rich history.
Mm-hmm. Rich culture, yeah. I know there were several Native American tribes in that area back in the day. I know that one of the primary groups was the Ute Indians, and they said that they were pretty much driven out by like the 1850s. And apparently there were some hostile encounters after that time with the Native Americans in that area.
That makes me think of, because we watched Skinwalker Ranch.
Mm-hmm. And
that talks about the history of the Ute and the Navajo.
Yeah.
And what the Navajo did to the Ute.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Which apparently it sounds like they kind of enslaved them in a way and
it wasn't a good history.
Right. And about putting a curse on them.
Yes. So that's where Skinwalker comes from. It's the curse. But isn't it interesting? We have the Ute in the valley, in the San Luis Valley, and another atrocity happens to them. They lose their home. They lose their lands, all of that kind of stuff. We have a lot of weirdness there. Mm-hmm. We watch Skinwalker Ranch, and then they have all this weirdness there. Is there some connection? I don't know. I just think it's a fascinating correlation.
Exactly.
Which is kind of interesting.
And I know that there are many, many stories of strange and unusual, even from the Native Americans. I mean, we've gone and visited the museum down there, and they have found some depictions on some of the stones and I think they called them the ant people.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting images.
Grew up with knowing the story of the ant people and the Native Americans they had this sacred place, and they would go to see the ant people, and it was every so many years. It wasn't a continuous thing. It was like a cleansing of the earth or whatever they called it. But the only thing is nobody else could know where they went. And people respected that, of course. Then they got followed by, could have been government agencies. We don't know. But after that, they never came back.
Yeah, because they were followed to the location, correct? And
yes.
It seems like, from what I've heard, was that they went to an area that's like in the mountain, like
yes.
Mirror Lake or somewhere, something like that.
The location was always kept secret, and people respected that because that was a piece of their heritage, their culture, Right. And I think when you look back in the San Luis Valley, people were very respectful mm-hmm. of those things, of whatever that belief system was or whatever that was. So to understand, in the San Luis Valley, it was Native Americans and then the Spaniards came, and the Spaniards settled. So that's where you get the mestizo. So we got the Native American and then the Spaniard blood together. And so that became that culture of the San Luis Valley. Mm-hmm. So it blended those two cultures together. And we've talked about this, in the valley, people their belief system is very important to them. Mm-hmm. So we are called the brujas, which is the witches, and then the curandera, which is like a healer kind of thing. In the valley, people very much believed you could be embrujada, mean a curse could be put upon you. And it was very real. So you have something similar in Louisiana where they do the voodoo. Mm-hmm. Ours is just, in the valley, it was just called something very different. It was, once again, to be embrujada meant that you had a curse put upon you. And to remove that curse, you needed a curandera.
And this is very prevalent even today, because I know that you have talked about being a therapist down there, that you had people that approached you
because of those very things. Yeah. If they really felt they were embrujada, or then, in fact, it was so funny because I was working in the West on the Western slope, but there was a guy from the San Luis Valley. And part of his thing is he really felt he was embrujada, that his ex had basically put a curse on him and got a bruja to put the curse on him. And it was very real to him.
Right.
He would talk to other people about that, and they did not understand what he was saying. So as soon as he said, I said, we were in a group, and he said about me, I said, whoa. I said, are you from the San Luis Valley? He goes, yes. He goes, how did you know? I said, you never got a curandera? And just the feel of it, he goes, nobody's ever understood me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was so powerful. It was so powerful because those things are rich within a person. And when we look at that, we look at the geography of the valley, it's different.
Yeah.
Does that have something to do with it? I don't know. But, if you haven't been to the San Luis Valley, oh my gosh, you got to go.
Yes.
You got to experience it with an open mind.
Yes. Talk to the people. The locals have got plenty of stories. There are so many strange and unusual things there. I know one of the places that we've heard a lot about and have not been to or really want to is called Gravity Hill.
Yes.
And apparently it's like the rules of gravity do not apply.
You can see videos and stuff like that, but we actually have Gravity Hill also in the valley. So if you park your vehicle at an angle, if it's going downhill, gravity takes you downhill. And in this case, it'll move your vehicle uphill.
Yeah.
So the magnetic field there is a little bit different.
Yes. Apparently, from what I have read and seen, the electromagnetic field of the San Luis Valley reaches higher into space than any other place in the world. And the only other place that comes close is Denver, Colorado, which is really interesting to me. I don't know if any of that plays anything into any of this, but I thought that was so strange.
Well, we even talk about, when we talk about the valley and, the cattle mutilations. And of course, it all started down there. It started with Snippy, the horse, and I don't think people understand what that meant. So if your cattle die and they're out in the field, it takes a long time for the sun to remove the flesh and all of that, and for the bones to bleach white. These were things that were happening within a short period of time.
Very anomalous. Yeah. The farmer come out there and see the animal fine, upright, moving around, whatever. And maybe an hour to however many hours later, just a small amount of time, to come back and find their cattle, or in this case with Snippy the horse, completely mutilated and the bone bleached white in that amount of time.
Yeah. The fluids taken out and stuff like that. And there's nothing around that to show that.
Yeah, and nothing showing that there were any kind of predators to attack, and it didn't even make any sense because of how it was done.
And I think that's what is such a strange thing there, is that things happen. I know even at where we live, the day going out to the corral, and our stallion is acting weird, and they're like, whoa, what is wrong with you? And he kept circling the mare, one of our mares, and just circling. But he was so agitated. Mm-hmm. And so finally went and looked, and the mare, the side of the mare was like cut. And you could see the internal organs.
Well, they were partly hanging out.
It was so bizarre.
Yeah.
But she wasn't in distress, which was very strange.
Yeah, she didn't.
She was not in distress. And the bizarre thing is, it just healed.
Yeah.
No vet, she just healed. You couldn't see it. It was so bizarre. Mm-hmm. And then you fast forward, and my parents raised pigs, and we had one that you kind of had to keep the pig separate because it was really mean, aggressive. Big one. Big pig. None of us wanted to go feed that pig even. She was just mean.
And moody.
Mean, moody, and just freaking, oh my God, you couldn't get by her. She was just horrible. I don't even know why we kept that stupid thing, other than the fact that it was very big. I think we eventually sold it. I don't know. But anyway, this is long after I had graduated and stuff, and I was out watering and stuff. And the other thing that was really weird about the horse thing is there was no blood because it snowed. So I'm trying to find the trace of the blood, find out, what is this? But it didn't look like if an animal attacked it, because it didn't have like teeth marks or stuff like that. It wasn't like that. It was very strange. Anyway, this pig, go out there, and the pig's docile. And I am totally confused by this, because you got there, it snorted. It was just mean. They're like, what the heck is going on here? So I get up and climb the fence and go to the other side of the corral so I can see at a different angle into the pen. And on her side is this perfect cut out with, like, if you were going to skin something.
2 different angles.
Yes.
So it looked like a flap of skin had been cut at a corner angle, and peeled back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how you did that with that, when I say she was mean, I am not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, that just healed. And believe it or not, after that, she was not aggressive, which was very strange. But I remember seeing these things thinking, what on earth? You have to understand, when I say she was so mean, that's why we had to keep her. That's why my dad kept her in just her own pen.
Mm-hmm. So many anomalous things there. And whether it be around UFOs, paranormal, we've talked about
Animals.
Many of the houses that we rented throughout the valley while we were there attending college, and just different strangeness that happened.
I think there is such a curiosity, I guess. I don't know what it is.
I think there is. We talk about the unknown and just all the possibilities. I think that's what it is for people.
And sometimes people go down and say, hey, will you go, let's go drive around, look for UFOs. But I won't do that.
We have, yeah.
And we did that with my niece. It would have been my sister's her nephews.
Mm-hmm.
So we go out, it's night. Then we went up.
We're UFO watching.
Oh, yeah. Because you have to understand, too, the sky there is so dark. It's one of the dark skies. So, oh my gosh, to see.
Yeah. The National Sand Dunes Park has been declared one of the dark park areas. But the whole San Luis Valley, because there's not a lot, like I said, there. It's a lot of farmers, a lot of fields. It is very dark throughout the valley. And
beautiful.
The amazing skies. Oh my God. The stars you can see millions.
Yes. So we go out, we're looking around, and we started by going east of town first. So we're driving up east, and why did we even slow down?
We slowed down because we kept seeing a little red light in one of the fields. Tiny.
When we were going east, though.
But you're talking about the D Mountain.
Yeah.
Yes. There was a little tiny red light that kept showing up in the grass. Not far even from the car. And so that's what made us stop. And then as we stopped and we're trying to figure out what this was, it sounded like something came up and tapped on the trunk of the car.
And we all turn around, look, there is nothing back there, y'all.
And of course I'm driving, which we
all already know.
First.
She freezes, and we're there, go, 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 and she slams on the brakes.
Well, I was already pretty much stopped, but
yes, but it's holding the brake down. They're like, oh my gosh, go.
Yeah.
But you know what?
In gear then.
But that did not deter us.
Yeah, so we went to the other side.
So then we went east.
Mm-hmm.
And we're driving east, and we get to this one road, and I said, well, let's go on ahead and turn north on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big street light. Okay. So we have our windows down because, we want to be able to hear, and all that. I don't know. They say you don't hear UFOs. I don't know what we were trying to hear. But anyway, so we make the turn, and we haven't gone very far. And all of a sudden, we smell the most god-awful smell.
Like rotting flesh. It was like something was dead.
Even beyond that, it was like that, but it wasn't.
But it was that bad and that pungent and disgusting. But and you didn't smell it right away.
No.
It just started while we were sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, it was that fast. It just came, because we were sitting there, and so it wasn't there, and then all of a sudden it was just there. And it was so funny because the little boy in the back, that wasn't me.
Okay.
Everybody smelled it, but he's the one who said it first. That wasn't me. And then we're all there like, what is that smell? But then the other odd thing was, it became pitch black.
Yeah, even the light from the street light was not casting over there. It was so dark.
It was really bizarre.
It was like it enveloped us. It was, yeah.
It was so insane. And it was one of those things, once again, roll up the windows and let's go.
Let's get out.
So that was the end of our UFO hunting that night with them. I was there like, oh, we did take him to the Atencio house though, too.
Yeah. The Atencio house, we've mentioned that in
And
past
we've had
episodes.
Charlene on. And
Charlene, yeah, that's the house she grew up in, and she did an interview with us, and
if you haven't listened to that one, you really should. That's our unexplained part two.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, she talked about that. And even the Atencio house, one night, your mom and your brother were so fascinated with that house, and we had taken them a couple of times. And then this other time we took them, them and their pictures. So once again, I'll take pictures, but I won't look.
Well, and that's a kind of the Atencio house, kind of iconic in the Del Norte area, especially. So many people have heard the stories about it. And so a lot of times we will, whenever we've gone back there, we've driven around it, snap some pictures and that, because you will see unusual things in it quite often.
That one particular time we took our pictures and then we went back home. We didn't look at them there. We just kind of went back home and we were looking through the pictures and there were orbs.
Yeah.
But when you looked at the orb, there were actually faces in the orbs.
Yeah. That's what it looked like.
And I know we had that footage somewhere. I just don't go from computer to computer and stuff like that. And
I think I actually have a couple of those, and I really would like to post some of them because I think that people would find them very interesting.
But even that, why there are so many orbs. And, you talked about that light that we would see. And, which is another weird thing with that Skinwalker Ranch thing, because they talk a lot about these orange orbs. Mm-hmm. And even when if you follow the Bigfoot things, we watch all of those just because we find it quite fascinating. We like a lot of the people on them too, but they talk about those orange orbs, mm-hmm. or red, or maybe different colors.
A lot of times like an amber color.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even that night when we were driving east in the field, we saw that orb just kind of moving with us. Mm-hmm. And
looked like it was floating over the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it follows you. It's not like it just sits. It has like movement with you.
Yeah. And there's multiple stories of that. If you talk to different people throughout the valley, many people have experienced that there. I know a common place for it is 7 North in the valley. We've seen some strange things on that road too.
And 7 North runs. And so my family home is on 8 North. So it was the road right over. So you had to drive 7 North to get to our house. Mm-hmm. And yeah, just so many bizarre, strange things, on that road. And my brother Ben talking about that orb and how it scared him. And he felt like it was keeping pace with him when he was driving at night. My uncle talked about that too. And, my uncle didn't get scared of a lot of things, but that kind of rattled him a little bit.
Yeah.
My sister Alice, she's going and it's following right behind her. And different people have talked to me about those orbs on that road and how it's not like it just sits there, it follows them. Mm-hmm. And people have had their cars stop there. And it's just it's fascinating. But when it's happening to you, there is a level of fear. And it's irrational fear, I want you to know.
Well, it seems like it, but when you don't know exactly what you're dealing with and you can't explain it, yeah, you definitely have that fear factor in place.
My mom used to get up in the middle of the night when she would have to go to the bathroom and stuff. And she had a ritual, which I thought was interesting. She would always look out the window. And when she looks out the window she would look out, it faces to the west. And one day we're talking and I was telling her that, Christy and I, we would go sit outside. And I remember telling her, yeah, it's so weird, Mom. I said, we'll be out there. And I said, we'll watch and we'll see the star. And you think it's a star, then it moves. And then you'll see it just move. And it's a quick movement. And then it's like it goes from one spot and it will just park in another spot. And you're there like, whoa, wait a minute. What the heck just happened here?
And when that happens, when it parks there, it just looks like a star. But you just saw it move clear across the sky, and it is such a strange experience. And I know there have been other people that have mentioned that too. There are several books about the valley and just strange and anomalous things there. One of them is The Mysterious Valley by
Christopher O'Brien.
Christopher O'Brien, yeah. And he went and talked to many of the people in the valley and got a collection of stories put together in that book. And there were a couple of people that mentioned over by the sand dunes having that same experience with something moving across the sky like that, and even coming close to their vehicle, being just however many feet, 30, 40 feet above their vehicle, and then moving up into the sky and appearing like if
and
it
then
was a
just
star.
parking.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking to my mom about that, and then she goes, Hita, she says, I'll look out at night, and she says, I'll see like this star, but then it like gets long. And she says, and then I'll see another star like fly into it, and then it like gets short again. And I said, Mom, does that happen every night? She says, no. She says it will just be random nights. It was never the same. It's not like she got up at 2 every night. It would be random times, random nights, and it was always to the west. Mm-hmm. And she would say, it's always in that same spot. She says, it looks like a star, but she said, it's not a star. I don't know what that is.
When you see something elongate and something else fly into it, I don't think that's a star.
But it wasn't like she was afraid or anything. She just found it fascinating. And so I think what happened is she would get up and look to see if she could experience that again. And she would periodically, she would see that.
Right.
And it was just one of those really interesting things. Mm-hmm. And I would go out sometimes, though sometimes at night, my family home, even outside, would cause me anxiety. It would cause me unrest.
You'd feel a little unsettled.
There was something just, I don't know what it was. Even though we had wonderful fun times, there was still this something else. Like I said, I don't even know how to describe it. Whether it was a presence or whatever it was. And
there's some kind of presence, I think, in the San Luis Valley that we can't see, but you can definitely feel.
And it's different at different locations.
Yeah. Going back to the Atencio house, you were saying about that, like you take the pictures around there, seeing these orbs and just unusual things. You were mentioning about my mom and my brother wanting to go over there and take pictures and stuff sometimes. My brother and I decided to go for a walk, and he wanted to walk past the Atencio house. And I was like,
this is daytime.
Yeah, it was the middle of the day.
You're braver.
Uh-huh. I'm walking the dog, and he decides to go over on that side of the street. I told him, nope, I'm staying over here, and, I'll just wait for you if you want to check things out. So he goes across the street over there, and he's kind of looking. Doesn't go on the property or anything, but he's
pretty close.
He's pretty close, yes. And I'm walking, not looking at him. I'm looking at the dog, and all of a sudden, I see out the corner of my eye, big movement, like it was him going forward, and I hear this crash, and it's him skidding in the rocks, and his eyes are huge, and he's laying on his stomach, and he says, something pushed me. Well, it scared me so bad, and the dog. The leash slipped out of my hand. She started running down the road, and I'm like, come back. Thankfully, she stopped, and I'm like trying to get the dog, and I'm trying to find out what happened with him, and he's like, I don't know, something just forcefully pushed me forward.
Sounded like he was airborne too.
Yeah, I mean, he went with force, and I could see he was stunned and just freaked out. So that was the end of our exploration there.
And I always tell people, have a healthy respect for things, because people get into this idea of, oh, this is fun, that ended his time of going to the Atencio house, because it really did scare him.
Yeah, it freaked him out.
But you imagine if you're just walking along and all of a sudden you feel something push you with so much force that you're airborne.
Yeah.
And he landed, you said, arms out, skidding.
Yes. Yeah, I saw right when he hit the ground and the gravel just, it was crazy. I couldn't believe that it had happened, but he was totally freaked out.
And that's the thing. Once again, to have that healthy respect for things you do not understand.
Yeah.
If you go to the valley, and like you said, you talk to the locals who will talk with you about it, there are so many stories. My sister was going to rent a house, and she says, why didn't you tell me that house was haunted? I said, I don't know. Didn't think about it. Because there's so many weird anomalies. When we're talking about that we're not just talking about that kind of stuff. People have reported seeing things that they feel are Bigfoot, and these are elderly people who they have no reason to lie.
Yeah.
They'll say, I looked out the window and I saw this, and they'll describe it, and then, say, oh, Bigfoot. There'll be people who will say they see entities that are not human.
Mm-hmm.
Some that fly. They talk about the lizard people. They talk about
shapeshifters there.
Yes, a lot of shapeshifters and things like that, which if you think about Native American culture talks about shapeshifters.
Right.
Is that part of that culture? I don't know.
But it's interesting because there are some things to back that up. Even like with the Atencio house, they've had people come in and investigate there. And there is a YouTube video that you can refer to see an example of a shadow person.
So if you go to Shadow People of the San Luis Valley, or you can put it in San Luis Valley Shadow People, it's going to come up and the guy is standing there and he videos from a little bit of a distance from the house, and he captures a wonderful, wonderful footage on that.
Yeah, a full
apparition. And yes, and it's great person too because you can see it, and then he slows it down frame by frame by frame for you to see. That to me is one of the best shadow figure videos. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And that house is boarded up. Nobody lives there.
Yeah.
But there are those things. People at our cemetery, things happen at our cemetery that scares people.
And then there's the cemetery that doesn't exist. So, we lived in Del Norte for like 10 years. And for all that time, going out of town, traveling west, like if you were going to South Fork, I would always see a cemetery on the right-hand side over there. And didn't think anything about it. Why would I talk about it? I just assumed, everybody saw the cemetery there. So one day we're talking, and I know that you mentioned something about, I can't remember why we were talking about the cemetery, and I asked you, well, which one are you talking about?
Oh, I said something about going to the cemetery.
Yeah, and I said, well, which one are you talking about? And you were looking at me like I had another head, and you go, there's only one cemetery in Del Norte. And I was like, no, what about the one going out of town? Like if you're going to South Fork on the right-hand side. And she's like, there's no cemetery there. And I'm like, what do you mean? We've like walked down there. I've seen it. It's not like I just saw it as we're flying by in the car or something. I have seen it over there. No, there's no cemetery there. So fast forward later and you're talking with your friend Heather.
She said the same thing to me. I don't know why we were talking about the cemetery. And she goes, which one? And I'm there like, what? Is this like the Twilight Zone? I said, Heather, we have one cemetery. She goes, no, the one I pass every day, because she lived in South Fork and would drive in to work. She goes, no, the one I pass every day. And I'm there like, you go to South Fork, there's no cemetery. She goes, oh my God. So she starts describing this cemetery in detail. And it's the same way that Christy is. I'm there like, what the heck is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense to me. Then fast forward even further, Kathy G, we finally take her to the valley and we're driving by and she sees the same cemetery and she describes it. She's describing, and I'm there like, there's something wrong with y'all.
And not in the moment, because when we were passing by there, it was no thought about that. We didn't talk about that.
Didn't talk about it at all. And then I said about the cemetery, she goes, and she's talking about
that one we passed.
I'm there like, we didn't pass a cemetery. There is no cemetery there.
But it was like, once that was brought into my awareness and you told me that, I have never seen that cemetery again.
And that's what Heather said. She said, after you said that, she says that cemetery no longer exists.
Yeah.
Now, what is the likelihood 3 different people, it's weird, 3 people I know too. Whoa. I just thought about that now. No, but 3 people I know would see a cemetery that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them, when they describe it, describe the same cemetery. And they're describing it and we're not together.
Mm-hmm.
Except when Kathy described it, you were with us but Christy hasn't said anything. And she's describing this cemetery.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. There are so many strange anomalies there. People see things, I'm not going to say that don't exist, because even when we talked with Charlene, when she said that when her husband asked, is that real or not? It is in that moment. But it's really strange, bizarre stuff that happens there.
Which makes me wonder if we're not just, I don't know, if we're just seeing through a veil, like to a different plane of existence at some point.
Some parallel universe.
Yeah, it's so strange.
And we talk about that so much when we're doing this. What are we really experiencing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people get really afraid of something, I think if they go to that place of, what am I really experiencing? But oftentimes, people say, oh, this is demonic or this is that. And sometimes if we step away from that, because that's going to take your level of fear up 15 notches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if you sit there and say, wait a minute, is what I'm experiencing, is that even of this realm or whatever you want to call it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we get into these things where we want to know and we want to explain. And maybe there's some stuff we're just never going to explain.
Right.
We have seen some very strange things in the valley, and you kind of sit there and say, but it's interesting because if you go talk to somebody else in the valley, they'll be there like, oh yeah,
mm-hmm.
Or go to this place or whatever. You talk to people outside the valley or don't have that, they kind of look at you as like, okay, what drug are you on? Or what mental illness do you have? Not understanding, once again, that rich culture
mm-hmm.
and the value of that culture too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, even in the valley, more people move in. The older generations are dying out and stuff like that. So does that change it if people don't experience it? But then you say that, and then we'll go down there, or, I'll be talking to somebody from the valley and they'll say, oh yeah, that house or this house, there's some weird stuff. Or,
well, those stories are, so frequently shared throughout the valley with people.
The other thing I was going to say is, we met up with some people a few times ago that we went there, and one of them, ex-police officer, and we were talking to him and we were telling him that story about that giant dog.
Mm-hmm.
And as we told him, his eyes got big, where they're like, what?
So you're talking about the episode that we did on Unexplained.
Episode 1.
Yeah, where that we had an experience.
Oh, no, it was 2.
Experience at the Atencio house. And there was a really huge black, looked like a shepherd.
Jet black.
But completely black.
And we thought it was a statue. And then the eyes in that moved and we knew it wasn't a statue.
Yeah.
So we're telling him about this and his eyes get big and we're there like, what? He goes, I saw that dog in town.
Yeah.
And we're there like, what?
As you mentioned, he's a police officer. So he was just checking,
going around checking the town. And he said he saw it. And he thought it, oh, come on.
He's going to approach it.
Yeah, come on. And he goes, it just didn't move. He goes, it was the weirdest thing. He goes, so then he started walking across the street. When he turned around, it was gone.
Yeah.
I mean, like instantly.
Yeah.
And it's like, because we had never heard anybody else having that experience with that. And then as you start talking to people, they start talking about these things that they see and they experience.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was young, my brother Ben, he was brave and a chicken at the same time. He really was. But my parents were not there. It was night and he wanted to go to town, I think for popcorn, if I remember correctly. But I was little. So he's going to town. Well, he gets back awfully fast and with no popcorn. So imagine our disappointment. But he's a little afraid. And they're like, what's the matter? He goes, I'm driving down the dirt road. He goes, and there's these people walking. And he goes, for lack of a better thing, he goes, they look like monks. You know how the monks wear the robes and they'll have the hood on? But it's freaking dark. It's a dark night. He goes, and they're walking. He goes, and it kind of something freaks him out about it. So he flips a U-turn to come back home. And when he comes back home, he says he looks, but he can't see any face. He goes, and then all of a sudden, they're just gone.
Mm-hmm.
Freaked him out, scared the crap out of him. That was the end of popcorn for us, just so y'all know. Just so you know.
You didn't get your popcorn.
Did not get our damn popcorn that night. But then it kind of freaked us out. So other things happened, and I'm not going to go into that, but it was just some really weird, scary stuff that happened after that. And, and that's what I mean. It's all fun and games until it's happening to you. And then it feels a little bit different.
Yeah. And even if you're not open to having your own experience like that, the San Luis Valley it's a strange and quirky kind of place. but a lot of fun too. And
it is absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful, absolutely. Some of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen there for sure, which I think Colorado skies are amazing anyway, but the San Luis Valley does have some spectacular sunsets. And as we mentioned about the stars, and one of the most amazing places to view that from is the UFO watchtower. That is on Highway 17 in the valley.
It's by Hooper, that area down in there.
Which I don't know how many people are aware. There's a hot springs in Hooper. Amazing place to go.
Yes.
But the UFO watchtower it's just out here in the middle of nowhere, this dome-shaped building. There's a whole little garden thing created out in the front. Got some little UFO people out there and stuff.
Aliens, we call them.
Yeah. Aliens, yeah. Not UFO people. Got some aliens standing out there. And it's just a neat place to go. But the cool thing is inside, there are many, many stories and pictures and things like that people have shared with the owner, Judy.
Which is, oh my goodness. And we got a chance to stand and talk with her, and we recorded, she asked if we would record our story of the one we saw at the house that we often talk about. You wish you could just go back and almost have that same experience again and have the sense to have a camera, do something, or to take in even more detail.
Well, something like that, when something like that happens, I feel like it's almost life-changing because you almost want to recreate it, but you can't. And we have gone back to that moment, back to that area where that we had that experience many, many times. And the experience I'm talking about is in our UFO episode. It was such a strange and unusual thing. And please go back and listen to it. It was just something that you feel like you have to go back to that moment and try to recreate.
You know what I really appreciated is that we experienced that together. So it's not like one of us telling a story and the other one saying, oh yeah, We were able to see it and finish each other's sentences as we were doing this whole description of things.
Yes.
But there is such an odd feeling you get at that moment. It is fear. It is fascination. There's so many feelings you can't even describe it.
It's the reason you can't get your camera, because your brain is trying to process what you're looking at, and you just cannot. But when we went to the UFO watchtower, she has a book filled with pictures of things that people have caught. And there was a picture in there that it was just like what we saw in the sky, just this football-shaped thing, complete surface of it lit up this bright blue-white light. It was amazing.
That blue was just so fascinating.
Yeah.
And it was so big.
Yeah.
It was so, so big.
Mm-hmm.
Why do some people see stuff and some people don't? I don't know. I don't know if some people are just more receptive to things and more accepting that there are things that are out there that we can't explain. And I don't know. It's not one is better than the other. There is no comparison. There's no nothing. If you experience it, you experience it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't, you don't.
But if you do go there, like I said, you will experience amazing views anyway. Those stars just...
Yes.
It's amazing.
If you can't tell, we love the valley. The beauty of it, the feel of it.
The mystery surrounding it.
Yes, exactly. And that rich history. It has such a rich history. And if you go to Del Norte, where I'm from, there is a museum there. The Rouge Marie Museum. Go there, look at some of the artifacts, look at some of the history. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It really just touches you in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And it's my understanding that at the UFO Watchtower, they have the skeleton now of Snippy the horse.
I think so. I read an article. I don't know. We have not been there.
It's been some.
I know we've been back to the valley 2 times in a row, and we were so busy doing other stuff, we didn't get a chance to do that. But it's something that I think would be fascinating to go see. And hopefully we will get a chance to go see that. And, maybe just make a trip to do that because it's very fascinating. The sand dunes, they have a rich history too, and some very mystical stuff too. They talked historically about cannibalism there. They talked about horses with webbed feet there.
Yeah.
There's a huge history. Crestone within itself has a lot of weird anomalies. They have a lot of UFO stuff. They have a lot of sound noises, things like that. From one end of the valley to the other,
right.
It doesn't matter where you're at. There is something, if you go there and you don't experience that paranormal or UFOs, that's okay, because you're going to really love the beauty of it, I think,
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah.
And I might be a little biased.
Yeah. It's true. It is beautiful.
Yes. So, I mean, we enjoy it. We hope you enjoy this episode. And if we find the pics of some of the stuff we took down there, we will go on ahead and post them to our Two Girls in a Pod Facebook page. And you can check them out there. You can check out the Shadow People on YouTube, Shadow People of the San Luis Valley, or San Luis Valley Shadow People. That will be the one in particular. And you'll know it's the right one because he'll say something like, people have been reporting shadow people at this location. And then he goes on to finally get this recording. So,
yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you have any questions, comments, or experiences of your own, man, get on our Two Girls in a Pod Facebook page and share some of your experiences. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Also, Instagram, Two Girls in a Pod Life's Journey.
Yep. And our webpage
is www.twogirlsinapod.com.
Yeah, and you can communicate with us at any of these things. We really look forward to hearing from you guys. We hope that you have a really great weekend or week by the time we get back the next time. Thank you so much for listening. Grateful as always.
Bye.
Bye.